I never thought a single sentence could unravel my entire life. But here I am, alone in a dingy LA motel room, scrolling through my ex's thriving social media while I'm drowning in debt and regret. My name's Sienna, I'm 27, and just a few months ago, I had a boyfriend who adored me, a shared apartment in Los Angeles, and a carefree life I thought I deserved. I threw it all away with a betrayal I didn't even consider wrong, a betrayal that cost me everything. Noah and I had been together for 2 years, living in a sunlit apartment in Silver Lake. The place was small but charming, with a balcony overlooking the city, a kitchen counter cluttered with takeout containers, and a bedroom where Noah's cologne lingered on the sheets. He was 29, a graphic designer with a steady freelance gig, his dark hair always a little messy, his laugh warm enough to make any bad day better. I worked as a bartender at a trendy downtown club, a job that paid well enough for me to enjoy the city's nightlife, a lifestyle Noah didn't always approve of. He was the stable one, the one who paid our rent on time, the one who cooked breakfast on Sundays, pancakes with a side of fresh strawberries, the smell filling the apartment with a sweetness I took for granted. On those mornings, he'd hum softly as he flipped the pancakes, the sunlight streaming through the window, catching the flecks of gold in his eyes. I'd sit at the counter, sipping coffee from a chipped mug he'd bought at a flea market, and feel a fleeting sense of peace, a peace I didn't realize I'd come to miss. Noah had a habit of leaving little notes on the fridge. Don't forget to smile today. His handwriting messy but endearing, a small gesture I'd often ignore, too caught up in my own world to appreciate his thoughtfulness. We spend evenings on the balcony, sharing a bottle of cheap wine, the city lights stretching out below us, his arm around my shoulders as he talked about his latest design project, his passion a quiet contrast to my restlessness. I'd often brush off his attempts to connect, rolling my eyes when he suggested a quiet night in, my mind already on the club, on the excitement I craved, on the life I thought I was missing out on. I'd snap at him when he asked where I'd been, my impatience growing with each question, my excuses becoming more flimsy as I prioritized my own desires over his feelings, too selfish to see the hurt I was causing. I'd leave his texts unanswered for hours, claiming I was busy at work, when really I was at the club, laughing with strangers, chasing a high that Noah's steady love couldn't provide, a high I thought I needed to feel alive. We didn't have kids, a choice we both agreed on, but Noah often talked about our future, marriage, a house, maybe a dog. I'd nod along, but deep down, I wasn't ready to settle. I craved excitement, the kind I found in the pulsing lights of the club, the kind Noah couldn't give me. That's where I met Jade, a 26-year-old DJ with a magnetic smile and a carefree attitude that drew me in like a moth to a flame. She'd spin tracks at the club, her energy electric, her laughter infectious. I first noticed her during a packed Friday night, her silhouette framed by the strobe lights, her fingers deftly working the turntables as the crowd cheered. After her set, we ended up at the bar, her ordering a whiskey neat, me pouring her a shot on the house. "You've got a wild energy," she said, her voice low, her eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my pulse race. That night, after too many tequila shots, we ended up in the back alley, her lips on mine, the neon glow of the club sign casting shadows on the brick wall. It felt thrilling, forbidden, but I didn't think it mattered. Not really. Jade and I started seeing each other on the side, our encounters a secret I kept from Noah. We'd meet at her loft in Echo Park, a chaotic space filled with vinyl records, fairy lights, and the faint scent of incense. One evening, we sprawled on her thrift store couch, the cushions sagging beneath us, as she played a new mix she'd been working on. The bass thumped through the room, vibrating in my chest, and I laughed as she pulled me to my feet, spinning me around until we collapsed in a heap, her arms around me, her breath warm against my neck. "Your trouble, Sienna," she teased, her voice low, her fingers tracing circles on my arm. I grinned, feeling alive in a way I hadn't with Noah, but I didn't see the danger in it, didn't see how I was trading a steady love for a fleeting high. Each time I left her loft, a part of me felt a flicker of guilt, a quiet voice whispering that I was betraying Noah, that I was risking everything for a thrill that wouldn't last. But I pushed it down, telling myself I deserved this, that Noah's steady love was too predictable, too safe, that I needed more to feel alive. I'd feel a rush of adrenaline as I slipped out of Jade's loft. The city lights reflecting off the wet pavement, my heart racing with the thrill of my secret, a thrill that made me feel untouchable, invincible, even as I knew I was playing with fire, even as I felt a growing emptiness inside, a void that Jade's laughter couldn't fill. I'd catch my reflection in a shop window on the way home, my eyes bright with excitement but shadowed with a guilt I refused to acknowledge, a guilt that gnawed at me more with each secret meeting, a guilt I buried under the thrill of Jade's touch. I'd tell Noah I was working late, my lies slipping out as easily as the cocktails I poured at the bar. I didn't see it as cheating, not in the traditional sense. Jade was a woman, and to me, that made it different, less serious, less wrong. I convinced myself it was just a bit of fun, a way to enjoy my life without hurting Noah. I'd come home to our apartment, the balcony doors open to let in the night air, and crawl into bed beside him, his steady breathing a contrast to the adrenaline still coursing through me. But secrets have a way of surfacing, and mine came to light on a Friday night, 3 months into my affair with Jade. Noah had been distant all week, his usual warmth replaced by a quiet tension I couldn't place. I'd just gotten home from the club, my hair still smelling of cigarette smoke, my lipstick smudged from a quick kiss with Jade in the bathroom stall. Noah was sitting on the couch, his laptop open, his face pale as he looked up at me. "Sienna, we need to talk," he said, his voice low, his eyes searching mine for something I couldn't give him: honesty. He held up his phone, a photo on the screen, a blurry shot of me and Jade in the alley, our arms around each other, our lips locked. My stomach dropped, the room spinning as I tried to find words. "Who sent you that?" I stammered, my hands trembling as I set my purse on the counter, the leather strap slipping through my fingers. "It doesn't matter," Noah said, his tone sharp, his jaw tight. "What matters is that you've been lying to me. You're cheating, Sienna, how could you?" I felt a surge of defiance, my guilt buried under a wave of self-justification. I crossed my arms, my voice rising as I met his gaze. "It's not cheating if it's with a woman, Noah," I said, my words sharp, my tone dismissive. "I'm just trying to enjoy my life. You're overreacting." His eyes widened, a mix of hurt and disbelief flashing across his face. "You think that makes it okay?" he asked, his voice breaking, his hands clenching into fists. "You think I'm supposed to just accept this?" I should have stopped, should have apologized, should have seen the pain in his eyes, but I didn't. I doubled down, my pride outweighing my shame. "If you were more open-minded, you'd understand," I snapped, turning away to hide the flush creeping up my cheeks. "I deserve to have fun, Noah. I'm not doing anything wrong." But I was wrong, so wrong, and I was about to learn just how much my words would cost me. The air in our Silver Lake apartment felt heavy that night, the tension between Noah and me crackling like static electricity. His words, "You're cheating, Sienna," hung in the room, a truth I couldn't escape, even as I tried to twist it into something less damning. The photo of me and Jade on his phone screen burned into my mind, the neon glow of the club sign a vivid reminder of my betrayal. I stood by the kitchen counter, my purse still on the floor where I dropped it, the leather strap tangled like my thoughts. Noah sat on the couch, his laptop closed now, his hands gripping the edge of the cushion, his eyes searching mine for an apology I wasn't ready to give. "I can't believe you do this," he said, his voice low but trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. "After everything we've built, you throw it away for some fling, and then you have the nerve to tell me it's not cheating because it's with a woman?" His words stung, but I clung to my defiance, my arms crossed tightly over my chest, my nails digging into my skin. I felt the heat rising in my cheeks, a mix of shame and frustration, but I refused to back down. "You're making this a bigger deal than it is, Noah," I shot back, my tone sharp, my gaze flickering to the balcony doors where the LA skyline twinkled mockingly. "It's not like I was with another guy. Jade, just she's different. It's not the same." Noah stood up, his movements abrupt, the couch creaking under the sudden shift. He ran a hand through his dark hair, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitch. "It's not about her being a woman, Sienna," he said, his voice rising, his eyes blazing with a fury I'd never seen before. It's about you lying to me, sneaking around, breaking my trust. You think I care about the gender? I care that you betrayed me." He took a step closer, his cologne mixing with the faint scent of cigarette smoke still clinging to my hair, a cruel reminder of the night I'd spent with Jade. "I trusted you," he continued, his voice cracking, his hands trembling at his sides. "I thought we were building a life together. I thought you loved me. Was I just a placeholder for you until something better came along?" His words hit me like a punch, and for a moment I felt a flicker of guilt, a sharp pang in my chest that made me want to reach out to take it all back. But my pride was stronger, a wall I'd built to protect myself from the truth. I pushed the guilt down, replacing it with a cold defiance. "You're suffocating me, Noah," I snapped, my voice louder now, my hands dropping to my sides, my fingers curling into fists. "You want me to be this perfect little girlfriend, but I'm not ready for that. I need to live my life, not just yours. If you can't handle me having a little fun, maybe you're the one with the problem." I saw the hurt deepen in his eyes, the way his shoulders tensed, but I didn't stop, couldn't stop, my pride driving me forward even as I knew I was wrong. Deep down, a small voice whispered that I was losing something irreplaceable, that Noah's love was worth more than any thrill Jade could offer, but I silenced it, too afraid to face the reality of my betrayal. "You're being dramatic," I added, my tone biting, my words a desperate attempt to shift the blame. "If you really loved me, you'd let me be myself." Noah stared at me for a long moment, his expression unreadable, his silence louder than any shout. Then he turned away, his movements slow, deliberate, as if he were carrying the weight of my betrayal on his shoulders. He walked to the bedroom, the door creaking as he opened it, and I heard the rustle of fabric, the clink of keys. My heart pounded, a sudden panic rising in my chest, but I stayed rooted to the spot, my defiance holding me in place. When he emerged, he had a duffel bag slung over his shoulder, his laptop tucked under his arm, his face a mask of resolve. "Noah, what are you doing?" I asked, my voice cracking, my hands dropping to my sides. He didn't look at me as he grabbed his jacket from the hook by the door, the leather creaking as he pulled it on. "I'm done, Sienna," he said, his tone flat, his gaze fixed on the floor. "I can't be with someone who doesn't respect me, who doesn't value what we had. You want to enjoy your life? Fine, do it without me." He opened the door, the night air rushing in, carrying the distant hum of the city, a sound that felt like a goodbye. "Noah, wait," I called, taking a step forward, my bare feet cold against the hardwood floor, my heart racing with a fear I hadn't expected. "We can talk about this. Don't just leave." I rushed to the door, my hand reaching for his arm, but he shrugged me off, his movements sharp, his eyes cold as he finally met my gaze. "There's nothing left to talk about," he said, his voice steady now, his resolve unshaken. "You made your choice, Sienna, now live with it." The door slammed shut behind him, the sound echoing through the apartment, a final note in the symphony of our unraveling. I stumbled back to the couch, my legs trembling, my breath coming in short gasps. I grabbed my phone, my fingers fumbling as I dialed his number, but it went straight to voicemail, his voice a painful reminder of what I'd lost. "Noah, please," I whispered into the void, my voice breaking, my tears falling onto the cracked screen. I threw on a jacket and ran out into the night, the city lights blurring through my tears, hopping to catch him before he disappeared. I checked the parking lot, the street corner, even the coffee shop we used to visit, but he was gone, his car nowhere in sight, his absence a void I couldn't fill. I stood on the sidewalk, the cool air biting at my skin, and realized I'd lost him for good, a realization that hit me harder than I'd expected. I sank to my knees, the pavement rough against my skin, my sobs echoing in the empty street, a wave of regret crashing over me as I realized what I'd thrown away. I thought about all the times I'd dismissed his love, the nights I'd chosen the club over him, the lies I'd told to keep my secret, and I felt a hollow ache in my chest, a mix of guilt and longing that I couldn't shake. I replayed our argument in my mind, his hurt expression, his trembling voice, and for the first time, I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake, if my need for fun had cost me the one person who truly cared about me. I sat there for what felt like hours, the city noise fading into a dull hum, my mind a storm of regret and self-justification, unable to decide if I'd been wronged or if I'd been the one to ruin everything. I thought about the life we could have had, the future he dreamed of, and I felt a pang of loss so deep it stole my breath. A loss I wasn't sure I'd ever recover from, a loss that left me hollow and aching for what I'd destroyed. I sank onto the couch when I returned, the cushions still warm from where Noah had been sitting, the faint scent of his cologne lingering in the air. My hands trembled as I reached for my phone, the cracked screen reflecting my pale face, my smudged lipstick a stark reminder of the night I'd chosen Jade over him. I thought about calling him again, texting him, begging him to come back, but I knew it was pointless. I'd crossed a line, one I couldn't uncross, and now I was left with the consequences of my own actions, consequences I wasn't ready to face. I told myself I'd be fine, that I didn't need Noah, that I could enjoy my life without him weighing me down. I pictured myself with Jade, dancing in the club, laughing in her loft, free from Noah's expectations. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be that simple, knew that I'd just set fire to the only stable thing I had, a fire that would soon consume everything I thought I deserved. The days after Noah left felt like a slow-motion collapse, each moment piling onto the last until I was buried under the rubble of my own choices. I thought I'd be fine without him, that I could keep living my carefree life with Jade, but I was wrong about everything. While Noah moved on and thrived, I spiraled into a mess I couldn't escape, a mess I'd created with my own hands. At first, I tried to convince myself I was better off. I threw myself into my nights with Jade, hoping she'd fill the void Noah had left. I showed up at her Echo Park loft unannounced, my suitcase in hand, my eyes red from crying. The fairy lights were still up, the vinyl records still scattered on the floor, but the warmth I once felt there was gone. Jade opened the door, her expression a mix of surprise and discomfort, her arms crossed as she leaned against the frame. "Sienna, what are you doing here?" she asked, her tone cautious, her eyes avoiding mine. "Noah left me," I said, my voice trembling, my hands clutching the suitcase handle. "I thought maybe I could stay here for a while. We could be together, you know?" She sighed, running a hand through her hair, her gaze softening but firm. "I told you I'm not looking for anything serious," she said, her words cutting deeper than I'd expected. "You need to figure out your own stuff, Sienna. I can't be your rebound." She closed the door gently, leaving me standing on her doorstep, the city noise a cruel backdrop to my rejection. I was truly alone now, with nowhere to turn. Without Noah's steady income, the Silver Lake apartment became a financial burden I couldn't carry alone. My bartending job didn't pay enough to cover the rent, especially with my late-night habits draining my savings, cocktails at the club, Ubers to Jade's place, new outfits to keep up appearances. I started missing payments, the late notices piling up on the kitchen counter, their red ink a stark contrast to the takeout containers I couldn't afford to replace with real meals. One morning, I woke to a pounding on the door, the landlord's voice sharp as he handed me an eviction notice. "You've got a week to get out, Sienna," he said, his eyes cold, his tone final. I stood in the doorway, my hair unwashed, my hands trembling, the balcony doors still open, letting in a breeze that felt colder than ever. I packed what I could into a single suitcase. My clothes, a few photos, a bottle of Noah's cologne I couldn't bring myself to throw away, and moved into a cheap motel on the outskirts of LA. The room was a far cry from our sunlit apartment, with peeling wallpaper, a mattress that sagged in the middle, and a flickering fluorescent light that buzzed incessantly. The air smelled of mildew and despair, a fitting backdrop for the life I'd fallen into. I'd sit on the bed, the springs creaking beneath me, and stare at the cracked mirror on the wall, my reflection a stranger, pale, hollow-eyed, a shadow of the woman who danced under club lights with Jade. I'd run my fingers over the bottle of Noah's cologne, the scent bringing back memories of our mornings together, his laughter, his warmth, all the things I'd taken for granted. I'd lie awake at night, the neon sign outside casting a sickly green glow through the cracked window, and scroll through my phone, my cracked screen a mirror to my fractured life. I'd hear the hum of traffic outside, the occasional shout from a passerby, and feel the weight of my isolation, a loneliness that seeped into my bones like the dampness of the room. Some nights, I'd cry myself to sleep, the pillow damp with my tears, my mind replaying every moment I'd taken Noah for granted, every lie I'd told, every choice that led me here. I'd wake up to the sound of the motel's ice machine rattling down the hall, my stomach growling from hunger, my savings too depleted to afford more than a vending machine snack. I'd stare at the ceiling, the cracks forming a map of my mistakes, and wonder how I'd fallen so far, how I'd let my need for excitement destroy everything I once held dear. I'd clutch the bottle of Noah's cologne to my chest, inhaling the scent as if it could bring him back, as if it could erase the emptiness that had taken over my life. I'd whisper his name into the darkness, a desperate plea for forgiveness I knew he'd never hear, a plea that echoed in the empty room, unanswered, a plea that left me feeling more broken than ever. Noah, meanwhile, was thriving. I saw it on social media, his posts a painful contrast to my reality. He'd landed a big contract with a tech company, his graphic design work featured in national campaigns, his smile brighter than I'd ever seen it. One night, as I scrolled through his profile, a new photo stopped me cold, him at a rooftop bar, his arm around a new woman, her smile as radiant as his, her hand resting on his chest in a way that made my stomach churn. The caption read, "Finding happiness again," and the comments were filled with support, friends congratulating him on moving on. I felt a surge of jealousy, a bitter ache that made me want to throw my phone against the wall, but I couldn't look away, couldn't stop the flood of memories. His laughter, his touch, the life we'd had before I ruined it. I zoomed in on the photo, studying her face, her confident smile, the way she looked at Noah with a warmth I'd never given him, and I felt a wave of self-loathing, a realization that I'd pushed him into her arms, that I'd lost him to someone who could give him what I couldn't. I scrolled through the comments, each one a dagger. "You deserve this, Noah. She looks perfect for you." And I felt a mix of anger and despair, a desperate wish to turn back time, to undo the choices that had led me here. My job at the club didn't last long either. I started showing up late, my hands shaky as I mixed drinks, my mind elsewhere. Customers complained, my tips dwindled, and one night, my manager pulled me aside, her voice clipped as she handed me my last paycheck. "You're not cutting it anymore, Sienna," she said, her eyes avoiding mine, her tone final. I didn't argue, didn't fight. I just took the check and walked out, the club's music fading behind me, the neon sign a blurry memory as I stepped into the night. Desperate for income, I tried applying for other jobs, waitressing, retail, even a barista position at a local cafe. But my lack of focus and the gaps in my resume worked against me. At one interview, the manager glanced at my application, her eyes narrowing as she asked, "Why'd you leave your last job so suddenly?" I mumbled something about personal reasons, but she didn't buy it, and I left with another rejection, my hope dwindling with each failed attempt. With no income and no home, I ended up sleeping on a friend's couch, a temporary solution that quickly wore out its welcome. My friend grew tired of my excuses, my late-night arrivals, my inability to contribute to rent. "You need to get your life together, Sienna," she said one morning, her voice firm, her arms crossed as she stood by the door. I left with my suitcase, the wheels rattling on the pavement, and checked into the motel, my savings nearly gone, my pride shattered. I tried reaching out to Noah, my desperation outweighing my shame. I sent him a text, my fingers trembling as I typed, "Noah, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Can we talk?" But the message didn't deliver. He'd blocked my number, a silent rejection that cut deeper than any words. I tried social media, leaving comments on his posts, my words a mix of apology and plea, but he didn't respond, his silence a wall I couldn't breach. I was alone, truly alone, with nothing but the memory of my betrayal to keep me company. A betrayal I still couldn't fully admit was my fault. The motel room felt like a cage, its peeling walls closing in as I sat on the sagging mattress, the flickering fluorescent light casting shadows on my cracked phone screen. Noah's latest post stared back at me, a photo of him at a gallery opening, his smile radiant, his life a stark contrast to the mildew-scented reality I'd fallen into. I'd lost everything, my home, my job, my dignity, while he'd gained the world, a world I'd thrown away with a betrayal I still couldn't fully own. I thought about our Silver Lake apartment, the balcony where we'd watch the sunset, the kitchen counter where he'd leave me coffee on late mornings, the bed where his cologne lingered on the sheets. I remembered the way he'd look at me, his eyes soft with love, Even when I came home late, reeking of the club, my excuses thin and unconvincing. I'd traded that for nights with Jade, for a thrill that left me empty, for a freedom that turned into a prison. I saw Noah's hurt in my mind, the way his voice broke when he said I'd betrayed him, the way he'd walked out, his duffel bag a symbol of my failure. I remembered the little things, the way he'd hold my hand during walks in the park, the way he'd surprise me with my favorite flowers on random days, the way he'd always know when I needed a hug. I told him it wasn't cheating, that he was overreacting. But now, sitting in this motel, I couldn't escape the truth. I'd been wrong, so wrong, and I was paying the price. But instead of accepting my guilt, I let resentment take over, a bitter shield against the shame I couldn't face. If Noah had been more open-minded, I wouldn't be here, I muttered, my voice low, my eyes fixed on the neon sign buzzing outside the window. He should have understood I needed to enjoy my life. He's the one who overreacted, not me. If he'd been less rigid, we could have worked through this. He left me when I needed him most. He's out there living his best life while I'm stuck here. He owes me for that. I ignored the irony of my words, the selfishness in my logic, and let a new plan form in my mind, a way to claw my way back into his life, to use his success to save myself. I opened my phone, my fingers steady as I typed a message to his work email, one I'd found on his portfolio site. Noah, I miss you. I've changed. Let's meet. I can help with your projects. I know I can be an asset to your career now. I could manage your social media, help with events, think of how great we'd be together again. I could even organize your gallery openings, make sure everything runs smoothly. I could be the partner you need, the one who supports your dreams, the one who makes your life easier. I hit send, a cold determination settling in my chest, a belief that he owed me a second chance, that I deserved to share in his new life, even after I'd shattered the one we'd had. A belief that I could manipulate his kindness to pull myself out of this hole I'd dug. A belief that I could turn my failure into his responsibility. A belief that I could rewrite our story to make myself the victim and him the savior I needed. A belief that I could use his success to erase my mistakes. A belief that I was entitled to his forgiveness, his success, his life, because I couldn't face the reality of my own failures, because I couldn't admit that I'd been the one to destroy everything, because I needed to believe I was still worth saving, because I couldn't bear the thought that I'd lost him forever due to my own selfish choices, because I refused to accept that I alone was to blame for my downfall.